Hi again. I just want to remind everybody that everything that we're doing today, I've made a sheet that has the links to it, and I dropped it into the chat, but we'll also put it online, probably on the website and on the Facebook into our Facebook link, so you'll have access to it. And I'm very, very pleased and slightly overwhelmed by all the talent that we have at Crafting Change. So I'm so excited that we have volunteers that want to share it with everybody. I know you all get tired of me sitting here yapping, so it'll be real good to see other people show us what they've made and how they've made it. We're trying to keep the theme of this to be scrap busting, trying to use up things that you have on hand or things that don't cost a lot because this time of year can get a little pricey if you're trying to do a lot of things for people. So our first presenters is going to be Carol Grape, and she's going to show us how to make a reusable gift bag. And that's followed by Deb Evans, and she's going to make a cute little fabric bell ornament. And the gift bag, I think, is wonderful for giving just about anything that you can reuse and reuse again. And the lovely little ornaments, I'd love to have something like that that we make that we can give to maybe in multitudes to nursing homes or places that we donate to. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Carol. And hi, Carol. How you guys doing
Hi,
today?
good. How are you? So
Great.
Deb's here in my studio too today. So, yeah, mine is not so much scrap busting because sometimes it takes larger pieces of fabric. But so first of all, I start with holiday fabrics generally for these, but obviously you could do these as well for any kind of gift bag. In this case, I've cut two pieces because my fabric is directional. And if I had left it like this, when I put it together, you would have one side of the bag would be right side up and one side would be upside down, kind of like with our taco totes and other fabrics that we do. So in this case, what I do is I face the two fabrics good sides together and I pin them, I clip them across the bottom, and then I take them over to my serger and I serge the bottom together first. And then what I do is then I go over to my iron, I iron my seam flat, and then I serge all four sides of my piece. I generally serge up the sides first, making sure that I keep my seam in the same direction on both edges. So sometimes you really have to hold that when you're going through your serger. Now you can also do this with, you can also stitch this as well. Excuse me, if you don't have a sewing machine, if you don't have a serger, excuse me, you can stitch these two together. Then what you would do is you would pink the long edges before you sewed them together. Once I've done my serging on all four sides, a lot of times I will take that fun little serger tool that pulls your ends in, or you can just fold them and iron them in later. Then my next step is to take, once I've serged everything, I take my my fabric and I put right sides together and I clip the bottom part, but I'm going to decide that because I'm going to be putting a drawstring in here, I determine how much I want of a border. And what I'll do is I'll take my ribbon, and in this case, what I want to do is I want to have a little edge up at the top. You can also do it so that your ribbon is going to be fairly close to the top and you won't have a little ruffle at the top. But in this case, I'm going to do a little ruffle at the top. So I'm going to put a pin in where I want this to end. A lot of times I'll use my my measuring gauge, and I'll mark where it's going to be on here, and I'll mark it at both ends and then maybe draw a line, but that's not necessary. Then I take my bag over to the sewing machine and I sew up the sides to that pin. And I want to make sure that I sew far enough away from that serged edge so that when I open it up, I don't see the threads of the serged edge there. And once that's done, we will take the bag over to the sewing machine. And this is kind of a critical point for what we do here. A lot of times, excuse me, I take it over to the ironing board. And what you want to do, and I love this little guy because I can do really small bags on it. You can also use, what's this called? A sleeve roll that you can iron on as well. But I like this little doodah, or at the end of my ironing board, and you take it over and you want to iron this edge flat so that you'll have a bit of a gap here. And this is where this is going to get folded over and your ribbon is going to go through there.
That's like our backpacks. Yeah.
Kind of like the backpacks. And then once I do that, then I take it over to, am I going too fast? I take it over to my sewing machine and I sew up. I back stitch across the base to make sure that it's strong. And then I sew up the other side. And here, I'll show this a little, get this a little closer to the camera.
Yeah.
So you sew up this edge, and it's usually easier to have the, if it's a small bag, it's easier to have the bag inside out when you do this stitching, and then especially when you're coming across the seam part down here when you're back stitching, and just make sure you don't get the another part of the bag hooked under the sewing machine, which I have done. And it's easy to do when it's small. And then the next stage, you can do a couple things at this point. Like with our taco totes, or not with our taco totes and our other totes, the green bag lady totes, you can do a box bottom. And what I do for that is I will create a box bottom depending on the thickness of what I want on a bag. Maybe you're thinking more about like a shirt box that's going to go in the bag, but it'll have a little bit. And then what I'll usually do is I'll just, instead of stitching it down like we do in the taco totes, I'll just serge across to make the box bottom. So after you do that, what you're going to do is, and this is where you're going to determine where you want to put your ribbon and how you want to stitch the ribbon on. What you're going to do is you're going to fold your edge over, and then you're going to stitch across the bottom of it. And then you're going to determine where, because in this case, I'm going to make a ruffle top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my ribbon across here and give it a little, 1/8 inch thickness distance from where you stitch the bottom edge to where you want to stitch for the top edge. And I usually mark that. And a lot of times on my sewing machine, this goes beyond the plate. So you can't really use the numbers on your plate. So what I'll do is I'll take a piece of blue masking tape and I will line up my needle here where I want it. And then I'll put a piece of blue masking tape on my flatbed of my sewing machine so that I can just do the same distance for both sides of the bag. And then this shows that I've done that. So I've done that stitch across where the ribbon's gonna where the casing's gonna be. So what I've discovered doing this is that the grosgrain ribbon works really nice for this project. There you can get kind of fun small grosgrain ribbons that have Christmas decorations on them. And that works well too. So generally speaking, I use anywhere from a 1/4 inch ribbon for the smaller bags. And this one's 5/8. 5/8 works nice, 1/2 inch works nice. If you're doing a really big bag, then you can go up to a 1 inch ribbon, but this works really nice. I've been utilizing this tool called We Are Memory Keepers ribbon cutter. And this one has a battery in it, but Tiffany found one at Amazon now, the same brand that has a USB cable in there. But basically you just lay your ribbon on here. It's got a heated wire right here when you drop it down. So when you come down like this, light goes on, you hold this down, takes 5 to 10 seconds, pick it up. And what it does is it not only cuts, but it seals the edge. It melts the edge of that ribbon. I did discover if the battery starts to die, it takes forever. And then I thought it was broken. I thought the wire wasn't coming down far enough. It was just that it didn't have enough power. So you probably having that USB one would be the same thing. If the rechargeable battery in there starts to die, it's time to charge it. My next step then is to run the ribbons through using a bodkin. When you're coming from 2 different sides, you'll run your first piece of ribbon all the way through around the back side and out the other side. The next ribbon will go in from the other direction and go all the way through, and then run it through this other side. And so you'll have 2 ends coming out either side like this. And then I knot them. I knot each section, and voila, you have a finished bag. You can do them with a one-sided. You can do one-sided if you have a piece of fabric. Sometimes if you have a piece of fabric that you just want to pull through one side, one of the things I've discovered is that it's a good idea, instead of tying it off as one piece like this for when you're doing the full drawstring, it's good to just knot the 2 ends. And then when you drawstring the bag together, then you just can tie a knot, not a double knot, but just tie it around and pull it. And that will pull the bag tight nicely. And then you can hang your tags on that. If you have a variety of fabrics that you decide, oh my, I forgot, I wanted to try something different and I wanted to do a border, you can add different fabrics. You can combine different fabrics. You can have, utilize a patchwork kind of thing if you wanted to. In this case, you can also put your ribbon on the outside of the bag like this and not have a casing. And then you would just fill your bag and, tie it up. Obviously neater than that. And then you can do a bow on it. And then also you can use cord if you want. And then just pull it this way. This is kind of a polyester cord, I guess. And I just heated the ends like we do on the backpacks. And I'll go from there. So that's the drawstring bags.
That's great, Carol. And I think I like it. I like it too, because if you got a lot of Christmas fabrics, you can still make it scrappy, like maybe make a 4-patch on the front, or like you did the different color of the casing. So it's very versatile. Plus you can make it the size that you need to fit
Right.
the gift. So very cute.
And then
Is
I
it-
highly recommend, so if you don't want if you want to reuse your bags every year, if you for your family in particular, you just collect them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
you can get them.
And then,
You can get them away from them, huh?
right. And then the other thing, so for like stocking gifts, if you have small stocking gifts or you have small pieces of fabric left, that this would maybe be too small for a bag for somebody, though I've made a lot of small bags for gift cards and things like that. But this is kind of nice too, because you can just wrap up an object. You can make it into a Tootsie Roll thing, and put ribbons on the end. So if you have some small pieces and like that, you can also, one of the things I've done is if I have something bigger like this and I'm going to wrap it, I'll just put a pin in here just to hold it so that I can get the ribbon around it. And then just tie it, and then or pin it here and here, and then just tie my ribbon around and then pull the straight pins out.
That's nice, because then all of that wrapping paper doesn't end up in the landfill.
Exactly.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I'd love to take credit for this design, but it's a Pinterest picture special. So there were no instructions, so we're just sort of winging it on our own here. This is, where is that thing gauge right here?
I think it's a 6-inch. Right?
First things first, we cut a 6-inch circular circle pattern. You can use a teacup, saucer, or anything that is that general dimension. Seemed to be a good size to work with. So I made one of those out of paper. Then I cut 2 pieces of fabric, and I chose different fabric. You could use the same or something else for the inside lining. One has snowflakes on it. The other has little poinsettias on it. And I put the right side together, leaving where these 2 pins are. I'm leaving that much open so that I can turn it inside out through that. And this particular one I left 1 1/4 inches open. Then I stitched around it using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I went ahead and pinked it so it will have no resistance when I turn it inside out and go to press it. The next step would be to turn it inside out. So your right sides are facing out. Give it a nice knife edge press. And that little area where I turned it inside out, I left that open, and you can see it sort of sticks out a little bit like a little spout. And that enables me to have something to sew onto. So I suggest doing that rather than turning it in and making it nice and smooth like the rest of the circle. Then I took a piece of ribbon, whatever you're going to hang it from, and I believe I cut these 7 inches. This one is measuring 7 inches. Oh, God, I'm good. Anyway, I take this And I'm laying it, decide which side you want to be the inside of the ornament. On this particular one, I made the big snowflake the inside, but it doesn't make any difference really. And I took my 7-inch ribbon, folded it in half, and put it right in that little protrusion there. And I just pin it with a pin. Now your next step would be to do the actual folding of the bell. So you can see that my little ribbon is inside here, the little loop right there. And I folded one side over the other. And, you know, kind of play with it and see what size you want it, how full you want it. But for me, the 6-inch, I bought it practically all the way over to the other side. So it's pretty much folded in thirds. And then where your little ribbons are sticking out there, I sewed right across that tip, and that is about 3/4 of an inch down. Just sew straight across there. Now that will give me this little flap in here, and that's what I'm going to sew my clapper to. Keeping in mind that this is a bell. Carol had some wonderful beads. I didn't have anything red, green, and white. So we strung these onto a thread, and I used like a quilting thread or buttonhole type weight thread, not your real fine Aurifil thread. You want something that's going to hold up to a little bit of banging. And I sewed that, let's see, can you see those little stitches right there? I sewed that by hand onto that little protrusion. So now it's basically hanging like this. It's sticking out, your little loops inside, and it's ready to be turned inside out. Okay, so I went ahead and turned it inside out, which I'll show you here. Oh, this is just magical. There we go. Okay, now it is inside out. And the little clapper, whoops, there it is. The little clapper is hanging down on the inside so you can see it. With a needle and thread, I just go under here and I hand stitch this so it lays down flat. Just do a little slip stitch all the way up to the top. I went about 1.5 inches. I started sewing about 1.5 inches down from the little square top right there, and sewed right along. Whoops, like being a weather girl. Let's see, right along that edge with my needle and thread. So after that's sewn, you will have your completed bell. And there's no interfacing or anything in it. It's just 2 layers of fabric. And it's a nice lightweight ornament for hanging on your tree.
You can put all kinds of things inside of there, even if they wanted to use a big old bell inside of there or something, or a jingle bell.
And if you wanted to get really fancy, you know, you could put some shiny trim around the edge and
yes,
decorate it up as much as you wanted to, or take a little tiny styrofoam ball, dip it in glue and roll it in glitter and use that as a clapper if you don't have any beads or buttons that are suitable.
yeah. Or even if you have a fancy sewing machine, you can use fancy stitches there in a decorative thread, maybe a gold thread or silver thread around the outside. It'd be cute. Again, those 2 patterns are included on the link sheet. Thank you so much, Deb. Thank you,
Wonderful.
Carol.
You're welcome.
And Christine's got a good suggestion. You can make it as a memory ornament using somebody's clothing and maybe embroider it with the year or a name.
But I'm going to show everyone how to make a Scrappy plastic bag dispenser. So I have 3 cats And every plastic bag that we get from the grocery store, we save so that we can use it to clean the litter boxes. And I know other people use them for other things, but they always end up making a mess. And I personally tie my bags so they take up less space, but my husband does not. So it turns into a disaster in the kitchen. So I'm really hoping that this helps organize this little area where we keep our bags. So to show you a finished version of the product. So the size depends on how big or how small you want to make it. This one is about 18 by 22 inches, but the bottom is elastic and stretchy, and you can just pull your bags out and then shove them right back into the top. So to start, this here is my quilt board. It's a vinyl tablecloth with a flannel backing that I heavy duty stapled to the back of the closet door. And so cotton fabric sticks really well to it, and no glue, anything, it just kind of sticks on there. Given that this project takes a lot of scrappy pieces, in order to organize them so that I had a design that didn't have, patterns touching, the board came in very handy to lay this out. And so in order to get the size that you want, and so for me, as I said, I go about 22 inches long and 19 across, and you produce about this size bag. I laid out all my scraps after I cut them into straight strips. So if you wanted to do more of like a haphazard design, you could just sew any shaped pieces together. But the OCD in me needed something that was kind of organized. And so as you can see, I've got pieces that are different sizes. So this was a 2.5 inch piece. I think this was 1.5 inch. But I made sure to match the size so that it was easy to cut strips. And so this is a strip that I already, sewed together. I'm going to try and zoom in here and see if you can see it. So when I sew them together, I put the right sides of the fabric together. Actually, let me show you this piece over here. So I put the right sides of the fabric together, and then I sew about a 1/4 inch seam all the way down. And then in order to create like a more flat seam, then I do a top stitch about 1/8 inch all the way down on the front side. One thing that I do try to do on the back, depending on how the design is laid out, is when I put that top stitch down, I have the unfinished seam pointing towards the bottom. So that way, when you push your bags in, you're not fighting against any exposed seams here.
So Amanda, you're just sewing one seam over. You're not doing them, pressing the seams flat open. One's just
Correct.
folded over.
That's
Oh,
correct,
love it.
Kathy.
Yes.
Yeah, my fear in doing the press seams open is that you'd have a more exposed seam, and with
Yes.
shoving hands into the bag over and over, I'm not sure how well that would hold up. So I went with this route. So this piece up here is for the handle. And so I've got 3 pieces. I want to say it was about 14 inches long to create a handle that seemed to me long enough to loop over the top. And so you can see here where I sewed these and did the top seam, and then this piece will eventually get sewn attached here. All right, so the first thing I want to show here is just the handle. So I showed you on the board where I had 3 pieces that I sewed together. Another option could just be to use a solid piece like this one. It just kind of depended on what theme I was going for the color scheme of the bags. So this piece here is one that I have it sewn together. So it's all the same fabric, but I didn't have enough of a strip. So I went ahead and sewed that together. I would not recommend using any strips smaller than 2 inches. I tried one at 1 3/4 inch, but it ended up being way too small for the handle. You can also use ribbon if you want, but since the theme of this was Scrappy, I went ahead and used scraps for this. And so once you have your strip for your handle, you're going to fold it in half, just like that, and then sew another 1/4 inch seam. And so this piece is one that's already been sewn shut. And then similar to handles for the tote bags, you'll flip that inside out and then do a top stitch around the top. And I did press this with an iron just to get a cleaner seam. All right, so once you have your design done on your board or wherever you're laying out, you'll end up with a piece that is approximately the measurements that you're looking at. And so this is just an example. Apologies for not using all the same color fabric because this takes up a lot of scraps and I didn't have that much. So I've got my ruler here to see if that helps you, but once you sew them together, it ends up being about that 22 inches long. And then turn that so it's the right direction. And then this one is about 20 inches wide, just based on the measurements of the scraps that I did. And so as you can see on the back, I actually was showing you upside down. I'm not sure if you can see this, I'm hoping so, but all of these seams, the exposed side is on the bottom, so that this would be the top of the bag coming down. So the next step I want to show is optional, but I found it to be helpful using cotton woven scraps just because the cotton woven isn't very sturdy. But I added a piece of iron-on interfacing on the back. And so I think this is the Hellon medium weight interfacing. In my trial and error on this though, I did learn to leave the bottom about 1.5 to 2 inches without the interfacing here. Because this is going to be the part of your bag that you sew a channel and then add elastic through. And with the interfacing, it makes it a little bit more difficult for it to scrunch up. And since you need that on the bottom to try and keep that closed, the bags just don't fall out, I found that this was a really helpful step. So whether or not you add the interfacing, I would say if you use like a heavy duty canvas scrap for your bag, you might not need it. You're going to trim all of your sides so that you've got a more uniform rectangle. And so I think this one ended up being about that 22, it's probably about 19 inches. But you've got this final rectangle that is going to eventually turn into your tube. And I dropped my last piece. So once you finish trimming the sides, you've got that uniform angle. The next two steps are going to be to sew the channel on the bottom and add the elastic, and then sew a seam at the top so that you don't have exposed fabric on the top. So for this one, I was able to leave open the interfacing. And so when you fold your fabric over, you just want to make sure that the seam goes on top of the interfacing so you don't have that interfacing exposed and it won't peel up after you're done. And so for the elastic, I started it and I used a safety pin to channel it through. You can use a bodkin or whatever other channeling device you might have. So I started by putting it through on one side and then sewing it tight. And then once the channel, and this was after the channel was completed, I pulled it all the way to the other side and then had to hold the fabric stiff when I ran it through the machine to catch the elastic in on the other side. And then once it was sewn in there, it scrunched up just like so. And then on the other side for the top, I folded over about 1/2 inch and then just sewed a straight stitch across the top. Once you're done with that, you're going to take your fabric, right sides together, and you're going to sew it another 1/4 inch seam, just like I recommend doing for the strips going together, all the way up the side. And so once that's complete, you end up with the tube that I showed you at the beginning. And I don't actually have one finished for that step, apologies for that. But before you flip it is when you'll want to add the handle. And so once this is sewn, I added my handle at that seam here and then folded it in half to match it so it was even on both sides. Let me grab the finished one. So you can see here, I did kind of like a box stitch. I don't know, is that visible?
Yeah.
So that way you just add the extra security of the handle with the little extra X. And so this is the side that was sewn up that seam. And I also did a zigzag down the fabric on that open seam on the inside so that it helps with the frame not getting out of control. And then you can see the other seam on the other side. One other suggestion I would make just in general for making this is to use variegated thread, because with all the different colors, this one was a little bit easier because it was all red, white, and blue, but I actually had some Americana variegated thread. So if you look in like the blue, you can see how it goes from blue to white to red. And so I thought that looked really cool on the solid piece. But for some of these other pieces where I had a lot of different like variety of pinks, it was kind of a pain in the butt to change the thread every time because my brain couldn't handle having non-matching thread. I'm sure it will be fine if you just went with a single color, but me personally, I couldn't handle that. So I was grateful I had some variegated thread left over from my cotton heating pad sewing. So I utilized that. So this one I used the pink, and then I think I used an orange for the Broncos one, purple for the purple. So all of these ones I showed you are intended to go horizontal. But when I finished this first one, I realized the measurements were a little off. So I ended up doing this one up and down, and it works just as well. So it's really up to you how you want to design the layout of your strips.
Very well done. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I made some beautiful ornaments. Like it was mainly knit, like these ones here. It was not exactly these ones. Let me show you. So this is the ornaments that were at the auction. And all of these were a little bigger, except for this, a little bigger than the ones that I'm going to show you right now. As you can see here, he's a little bit more detail, and a close up those ones. These are different patterns than what I'm going to show you, just because some of these are paid patterns, and this is just a plain color. And this is the crochet example from what was already at the auction. And that's a different one. It is a star. It's also all knit. And you can see the stitch detail actually on the other side. This is a print of the links that I have provided. I'm showing you these ones also because these are free. Jule Cule, says Google. I made some of this. So you can see this little here. There's a little secret to my balls to look these round. And what I use, as you can see here, is this one is not loose. This one isn't loose either. Okay. These balls. These are totally clear. You can work with them. Like these I got from Dollar Tree. This is all plastic. They come in more sizes. This is also from Dollar Tree. Also found this big boy here. Like, how do you go from this to that? This design right here. One is this design right here. This one is this design right here. And it's just repeated 4 times all around the ball. Now, this is something that I did because I am a perfectionist and I want it to be like this perfect round ornament, like it fits like a sleeve inside the little thing. Yes, it fits inside like the little thing. But this, like the pattern doesn't tell you to do that. What it wants you to do is like just finish up your work and then stuff it. This is a stuffed example. And I added a little crochet hooky thingy, so I made one exactly the same with the stuffed ball. They look a little different. I like this one better. So a little explanation about the patterns. This is what you're going to see in the same I'm going to explain the thing. This is what you see in the print, in the pattern, in the document. This is how you read it. It says here in the instructions, for example, here it says Jule Cule 1, repeat pattern 4 times. And exactly that's what you do. You repeat these little pieces 4 times next to one another. And I have a little example right here with your double pointed needles. So if you can see more or less, you can see how this is pointy here And it has this more rectangular part. And I am here to the point where I am starting to go down in the amount of stitches. How to add them and how to decrease. It's all given here in the instructions. I'm not going to, it's actually what I use because I'm blind. So you start with this. This is your cast on 4 needles, and then you start increasing at the beginning of your needle, at the end of your needle, until you get, this is 12 stitches per needle, like this. 12 stitches per needle, and this is already decreased. So right now I do have 10 stitches per needle here. You start going up, and that's how it looks, like this. Pointy, rectangular, where you get the chance to do the design. And then we'll be doing the decreasing so it wraps around the bottle. So first of all, remove the cap. Easy as that. And as I said, I already made one decrease. I already these 2 lines here, these 2 rows. And that's when I insert my ball in there. I did this, I made a couple more rows so it wouldn't be like as tight, and it could be shown better here. And with the ball inside, you're going to go through the rest of the pattern. So the first one is, this is all knit or stockinette stitch. To decrease here, I do a slip, knit. Then you go to the end, to the last 2 stitches. And the last 2 stitches are just up, knit 2 together. And you do the same on each needle, and you just start having less and less stitches. So now I have here 8 stitches. All of the others are going to have 10 because I just decrease here. And you go around until you have 4. I actually go all the way down to 4 because it has this. It is not going to end so tight. And that's it. You finish up, and then you put this back. There you go. Put it back, and then it's finished. So then it's finished like this. Yay! It is not hard. You're familiar with knitting with the double pointed needles. It's really straightforward thing. It looks difficult. All of this looks difficult. Yes, it is. But if you have the time, you can do it. I can assure you, it really, really is not difficult at all. Usually where you start and end your pattern, you're going to have a little mismatch because it doesn't go like row by row. It's more like a spiral. So usually the end and beginning of your 4 panels are going to look a little mismatched, but the others, look how cute this diamond here in the middle. Practice, 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 practice. And the best of all is the amount of yarn used in here is just nothing. It's seriously nothing. And just to weigh one of the balls, this is in grams because it's more sensitive. 8 grams just for the ball, and one that's already knit, 15. So another 7 grams of yarn. That's nothing. I literally got these yarn, 100 grams to make this, and I have made these only. This is halfway through, 56 out of 100.
Yeah.
And this is cotton acrylic. This specific one, I also have another examples here that could work. Okay, and see, this is another kind of natural thing. I have used these yarn bead. This is totally acrylic. This one is made with those, with this same kind of material. Also not a lot, but for example, this little piece of yarn, this little Scrappy, 8 grams. You can make one ball with that. This is a knit pattern. It is in the lengths. And these, even though it says it's a hat pattern, this is the same construction that is needed to make the same thing crocheted. So here is an example of crochet in 2 colors. And here is an example of knit. These are a lot easier. It doesn't take like the 4 difficult needles that Tiffany says she doesn't want to learn because it looks difficult. It's not. But these are actually just made with line and hook or 2 needles. The pattern show everything really. Okay, for this one, the instructions are right here. So we start with, and I have 22 stitches, 22 because that's the size that I felt was best for this small size that I have been using. Again, the smaller size from Dollar Tree. How do I know this? Because I already failed at doing it. Like, this is an already bigger ball, for example, and I used more stitches. I used the 26 stitches that the pattern says here, but this is huge. It has a lot of excess. It feels loose. It looks clumpy, like looks like an orange here. But then I made this other one, like, okay, maybe 20 is a good size. So usually it's just the same amount of stitches you are casting on is the same amount of rows you're going to make. But that's why this has so much. It is tall because it has excess at the bottom, and it also has a lot of excess to the sides. So that was too much. Like, okay, maybe 20, it works. But at the same time, it looks super tight. Like the stitches are just so tight in this example. So after doing that trial and error, because all of it is that, and that is how you get to make even bigger balls, just try it. I came up with 22, and here we go with the instructions. Knit 1, slip knit, which is decrease. So we have 1 stitch less here, and then by the end, before ending, we have a make one. So increase. So this same 22 stitches, we start with 1. Always have 1 for, so to say, knit normal stitch at your edges. So we're making 1, and we're gonna do a decrease, slip, knit. Let's go all the way to the end. You will always just do 2 at a time, and then change into 2 at a time. Go from the front, get it from the back, pull to the front, and that's how you get a knit. And then here we are going to increase still. So for the first row, it just says make 1, but I don't have a lot of room to work with because I can't pull the yarn here to make 1. So what I do here is a knit front and back. So knit front, knit back, and your last failed. Okay, here we go again. Our last stitch is going to be normal, quote unquote. The other side, to create this texture, this is halfway done. I'll show you this next step. And to create the texture, this is a garter stitch, I think they call it. We are going to knit again. So that way we're gonna have always on the front a row that looks knit, a row that looks purl. That's all there is to this. You repeat these 2 rows until you get however you may hear, however rows that's going to be. So these count as 2, of course, and going to the end, and then just change, not change. Here we would have to add another yarn. So whatever is your favorite way to add yarn, you already need a loop. You just go in raw. This, if you just want to grab it, and you just start with the next color. That's it. The same process. Oops. The same process. Knit 1, slip, slip, knit, and just keep going. The same. It's going to be the same. However color you want to add, you can add. It's going to be the same. So of course this is a little loose. You can always tighten it. You get this. Tighten it. Looks better. All right. So here it is. 22 rows finished. And it's not completely finished, as you can see, because at the top I still have it mounted on my needle. But that's only because I already cut the yarn here, so I could keep on using the bolts. However you choose to finish this, you can just grab the change color again and go on and close off like so, like start binding off, and then you have a finished up edge. And whatever, I'm gonna leave it like that. But this is how the making of the rows, since we're always decreasing here and increasing here on our first row, that is what it's going to look like. That is why we have this shape, and that is how it turns into a beautiful spiral. Because to join this, for example, as I was saying, you can just bind off there, which is not what I usually do, because I would prefer to just turn this around and start looking. I actually do it with my hook. Where's my hook? Get from in here, grab a stitch, and start closing off. And all of this that is at the beginning, you're going to bind with the end. And it's going to be a tube like this. What does it look like? Exactly like this. This one is kind of dressed. Release, please and thank you. How do we know this is the outer side? Because the other side looks different. Unless you also like this kind of stitch going outside. I mean, that's all up to you. I like the other side better. It looks like neater. And again, to just do the thing, we're going to introduce this, or we can do the finish off and stuff in it. But how do we make it? I had this already. Oh no, it's here. Sorry. Just go row by row, or more like the ending one of the rows, or just one of the colors, so that you don't get a lot of crowd on one of your stitches. And then when we pull,
Okay.
is when it's going to start curving. Do you see that there? So that's when it starts curving. And of course, I'm just going to do this a little faster so we don't have to go through all of the stitches. I'm just going to do it a little bit carefully so we can just have something that looks like it goes here. See how it starts to swirl? So when you finish up your top, and we can use this again or just stuff it. Yes, it can be a little tight because, for example, this is the side where I change the color. There we go. It's a little snug, but not too much. And then we do the same with this other tail here, mount it in a needle and stretch it and see how it gets into that swirl again. It's just swirly.
It's fascinating.
It's just so cute. And look how it looks. This is 22 stitches, and it looks slightly better than this one that is like utterly stretched out. This one is
Yeah.
not so much. It has a lot of texture. Maybe you can't see that much because I wanted to have a little bit more light, but it has a great texture. So you can do it with more colors, like the pattern here has. It has
Ooh.
3 different colors, and it really looks very cute too for the crochet. It's pretty much the same idea. I have this here, just exactly the same, except for the amount of stitches. These are 18. So I have 18 stitches here. And what we do in this case, different yarn, because you can also use variegated with some speckles. I did the same 18 stitches as I have right here. And we're going to go to the same principle. We're going up 1 row. We're going, I use the back of the stitches to start. So 1 single crochet, and we're going to do a decrease.
Yeah, move your hands
I'm
up
sorry.
a little bit.
Sorry,
There
sorry,
we go. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, so I did 1 single crochet, and then we're going to do a decrease again. So we pull 2 loops, do it in 1. All right. I'm trying. Again, the first row is always difficult. And the trick for making your crochet have this texture, because it doesn't usually look like knit except for the V's here that start forming. You don't have much of a pearl looking stitch, so we're gonna see what the trick is in the next row. So this is just the beginning, so it doesn't look anything fantastic. We're just doing the base. So we decreased in the beginning, and then same principle, we're going to add 1 more stitch at the end, however you like to add your stitches. Some people like to do the 2, yes. Again, sorry.
Val.
Yes.
Hi, Val. Then that's done pretty much the same way as
Yes.
the knitted one is, huh? How long does it take you to make one of the
Yes,
Fair
pretty
Isle
much the
ornaments?
same. Oh, hours.
Hours.
Like 4 to 6, I would say.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you got to really like somebody if you're going to make them one of those.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, here we come for the next row to make the texture work. And this one, we're going to get into the back loop.
Back loop only.
Back loop only, and do your single crochet. And as the same with the other pattern, second row is all just no increase, no decrease, just the same amount of stitches.
Val.
And that's the way you go. And from here on, it's always back loop. Yes. Just another trick I wanted to say real fast. It doesn't have to be this kind of ornament. It doesn't have to be the clear one. You can use just whatever ornament you have that you have seen on sale. And for example, if you want to work like all black and white, red and white, and you found a lot of red ornaments, use them. You're not going to see them.
So this is to use the scraps up from fleece. So I make a lot of hats and that for, let me just fix my camera. like the shelters and that in the area, and you always get that long strip at the end that you can't use, or the other way. The great thing about this is stretch doesn't matter, so it can stretch any way it needs to. So for mine, I'm going to show you 6 layers where we'll talk about whether to use 4 or not as we go through. But here is, I don't know how to flip. Here, let's do it
There
this
you
way.
go.
So you're going to need 2 8x7, 2 6x7, and 2 4x6. You're going to want to use a ballpoint needle because it is fleece, 80-12 or 90-40, depending on which fleece you're using. So Blizzard works great for this. So if you have a lot of Blizzard you want to get rid of, it's easier on the machine. It works just as well as the anti-pill. I tend to just use whatever I have and I mix and match them. It doesn't matter. If you're using the anti-pill, you definitely want to go with the 90-14 needle because it's heavier on the machine. You will need a walking foot because that's an awful lot of layers of fleece and they don't budge much without one. So you do want a walking foot, and you want to stay away from Lush. The Lush fleece, because it's way too thick. You'll never get 6 layers or even 4 under I use a heavy duty machine and that's tough. So those are your materials. So you have the 6 here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to separate them into 2 and you're going to layer them like this. So this is your bottom and here is your top. So you're going to pin them in. You'll have 2 of these. I only have 1 here, but you'll have 2 of them, and I've centered them. So I have a line going down the center. So for each set, you want to sew it just 3 of the layers together like this. If you don't want 3, you can do 4. You just take this top piece off, or you can resize 2 of the layers to be more convenient for whatever you want. You do need them to be the 7 inches tall though, because that is what the swiffer, I use this swiffer, the yellow handle one. So once you have both of your sides layers sewn together, it's going to come out looking like this. So you'll see that it just becomes a nice big fluff. So these 2 layers are the anti-pill and this one is Blizzard. So you can kind of see they all go together. So once you have it like this, it's not ready yet because you need to make the channels. So what I do with the channels is I have this little shim here. It's a 1/2 inch cardboard, whatever you have. I've got a couple layers glued together here to make it thicker, and it's about 4.5 inches long. And what you're going to do is from the bottom, you're just going to layer it in about a 1/2 inch and draw a line on both sides underneath this little guy. So you're going to hide it, and then you're going to stitch through 4 layers. So make sure on the other side you scoop up the back so it's like this when you sew. The 4 layers together on that side, and then you're going to flip it and do 4 layers on this side. And that'll give you your channels from the bottom of your piece here, and they're hidden. So if you only do 4 layers, you're going to want to do it on the inside layer underneath your top layer. So you don't want the channel on top, because then you'll have this inch wide blank spot that won't clean anything, won't swiffer up anything. And once you're done with that, you're going to cut the layers, each layer into strips down to the stitch, but not into the stitch. So you're going to cut it about a 1/2 inch. I just eyeball it. The flannel link that I had provided does have a template where you can lay it down and kind of cut them. It's not necessary. You do what you want. I know some people like them thinner. So like my mom's like, can you cut them thinner? And some people like them bigger. It's all how however you want to do it. But once you cut them, they then look like this. So you get a nice fluffy swiffer. And at the bottom is your channel. I should show you on this one. Is your channel. It's hard to see, but it's like right
there.
Right there. And it's going to be snug the first couple of times you put this in because you want it to be, because fleece stretches. So even after you use it, so it fits in there. And then when these are on, gotta find it.
I love these. I love these.
Just
Where have
flip
I
it.
been? Where have I been?
And then you can wash and dryer.
Awesome,
Toss and
Mary.
wash.
That's so awesome.
Throw them in the dryer. But like I said, the 6 layers is thick. So it is tough on a machine. So heavy duty if you have one. If not, go slow. Add a, make your stitch a little longer. I use like a 3.0 or a 3.5 if I have to. So just make your stitch a little longer and check your tension. Like practice on a couple of skinnier pieces so that you can check the tension on your machine, because every machine is finicky in its own way. But yeah, they don't take long to make. It's just the finicky machine part you have to deal with if your machine doesn't like fleece.
I just got something real quick. Yeah, what would we do without Pinterest? We would have these rabbit holes that we couldn't go down. But you know, I love to recycle things. And so this is making a hot pad out of upcycled denim. And I just think these are so clever. Now, if you've been doing a lot of upcycling lately, then you probably got a pair of pants that looks like Daisy Dukes. And I'm certainly not going to be wearing those. I've used the legs for totes and whatnot. But what I'm looking at are these pockets in the back. The first thing you want to look for is you want to look for a pocket that has some extra room around that you can cut it. No two pockets are going to be the same, but you want at least an inch of clearance so you can put your binding on. So use up every inch of your denim. So you're going to need denim like this. You're going to need Insulbright, which is a special kind of fleece that's got some insulative properties. You need Insulbright. You'll need just some scrap denim because we're going to do an interlining or an interlayer. So just some scrap denim. And then you'll need your fabric that you're going to use for the back of the hot pad. And if you've got spray glue or basting glue or glue stick, that's really handy too. So the first thing I do is I cut these out, just cut my pocket, doing a rough cut, trying to get it into a usable shape. And then I'll take my trusty old chalk and the ruler and go ahead and draw my lines around where I'm going to want the hot pad. The nice thing about a hot pad is it's not a particular size. If you want it smaller or bigger, or if you want the corners, not corners, and want them rounded, you can do whatever you want to. But I like to chalk it out first with some chalk so I can kind of eyeball and see what's going on. So I take this now, and then we'll cut those out, and I'll have my piece. Now, a thing about the denim, if you're shopping in your thrift stores or wherever you're going, most of the ladies' denim has stretch to it. And so who can tell me that that's like why that's not a good idea? Well, it's not a good idea because the lycra and the polyester does not have as nice of heat resistant properties as cotton. So if you can score some 100% cotton, that's much better. So the first thing I do is I take the scrap denim. It doesn't matter for the second piece of denim. It can be scrap. I take that and just set it on my work table. You take your glue stick and run it through there. And then take a piece of your It's So Bright, put that down on there. And then take your pocket denim, do the same, put your glue stick around the outside of it, and then stick that together on here. So you've got a denim sandwich. You got denim and so bright denim. And this is the point at which if you have it cut real close, you can go ahead and trim that up. But with these three glued together, then you bring out your backing. And I've chose a little cherry fun for some backing. Now this backing needs to be cut 1 inch bigger all the way around. So if you've got, say, like an 8-inch square, then you're going to need a 10-inch square of the fabric. And that's because that's going to come up around and be our binding. So no binding headaches on this one, guys. I can't, sometimes that stuff just makes you crazy. So that's why I like this so much. So the final step is to take the backing, and here we have the wrong side looking at us with the right side down. And then we take our sandwich and center it on there. And I haven't basted it because I'm just trying to give you an idea. And then the next thing that you do is once you've got all of these basted with the glue, is that this the video that I've linked to has a new way of doing corners that I'm trying to master. Basically on the sides, you turn it up once and then you turn it up over again and then clip it all the way across. But how they do the corners is the same way. You take this point, put it to the corner once, and then fold it up twice. And we hold that corner. And when we're coming down this other side, remember we're pulling it up once and then pulling it around. And as you do that, that automatically will come in and that will miter right here. So it's kind of like a cheater's miter corner. I love it. So to finish the other side, we come up once, then come up over the side of our denim. And then down here, we do the same thing. Fold it up once, then fold it up twice, and then you'll have your mitered corner down here. And so once you've got that all clipped, got your corners mitered, clipped on the sides, you got the nice fabric on the back, then you put your zipper foot on, or a narrow foot, or something that you can get close to the edge and get close to here. Of course, we're going to leave that open. And then what you want to do is that you want to stitch all the way around. And I love that because you don't have to worry, is my binding on? Am I catching it on the front or on the back? Because you've got this back just coming up around the outside of the top. So you stitch all the way around. If you want to make a little loop, you would stick that up underneath there as you're stitching and catch it in the stitching. And then to finish it, I just top stitched around that pocket just to give something to hold all those layers together. So when you're done, you've got the pot holder that we can use like this, or if they want to, stick your pocket in it and grab things through the pocket. And I just think those are so clever to take all your scraps and to do them into a pot holder. Now, the Inso Bright, I used 1 layer, and so this will do me in my kitchen because it's just for pulling things in and out of the oven. But if you're going to make some for maybe somebody who does barbecuing or who's got some cast iron pans or things that you want really, really to be heat resistant, then I would use 2 layers of Insul Bright inside of here. And the instructions on the Insul Bright said it doesn't matter which side you have up, but I kind of think I like the reflective side towards the heat source. So that's my idea, just a quick little crafts. And it really doesn't matter if your pockets are different denim. If you want them to match, just put the same thing on the back. So cute little idea that you can use for hostess gifts or stocking stuffers. I want to show you, we had a new charity put up this week. And in there are some ideas for crocheting some scrubbies. And these are a couple of the patterns that are on the sheet there. These are little kitchen scrubbies that are non-scratch, but they're sturdy enough that they can get at a lot of the goo and the gunk, and you can use it for bathroom cleaning or kitchen cleaning or in the sink. And these are done with Scrubology yarn from Hobby Lobby, Scrubology. And it's like I don't quite know what it is, but it's got little scratchy properties to it. And these are just adorable. These go so fast. You make a loop and then do like 14 stitches and then tie that off and then join on with your other color of yarn and make the petals. And they just go so fast.
That would make it bigger.
Yeah, see, those just seem too small for me. I want
Really?
something that's the size of a sponge for a scrubby.
Well, I don't know. Put another row on the center then. When you do in the center, bring maybe another half double crochet row
Yeah,
and then tie off and then put the petals.
yeah.
But my husband's been testing these when he's doing dishes, and he says he really likes them because they're not so huge.
I put a loop on mine so my finger goes through it.
Good idea. Anyway, this is the one petal pattern.
So cute.
And then the other pattern that we have that we're using for the new charity is using crocheting with tulle. These little tulle tubes are about 6. Well, I'm as good as Deb. Whew. Yeah, they're 6 inches wide. And you crochet with these. And you start out with the circle. Then you make your double crochets. And then you do like 2 singles in each hole. And you do 2 of them. The first one and the second one, you put them together, wrong sides together, and then you just do a single crochet and crochet them together around the outside. Now, I wanted to show, this is the size that I got when I used the recommended hook, which was a 10 millimeter, and that's more of a larger size, Carol.
Yeah,
It's not as scratchy as the Scrubology yarn, but the first ones I made them smaller, and I'd use like a 6.5. And so I got them smaller. So you can play around with it. They're basically just 2 round discs that are just crocheted together, and then the ends are worked in. And so we've been using these at the sink too, and we really like these. But I wanted to quick show you these because the one with the tulle is on the pattern for the, oh help Tiff, the new one,
Butterfly Haven.
Butterfly Haven.
But could you not use the Scrubology to make the round ones as well?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I did one of them the other night. This is the Scrubology made with the rounds. And I really like that too.
That's
So I just have not used any of the scrubby yarn. And so I just wanted to show that it's just been fun playing with this kitchen scrubby. And who would have thought of using this tool? If you ever see this like on closeout somewhere, just buy a ton of it.
How well does the tool wash up though? I mean, can you put it in the washer and kind of wash them?
Yeah,
It's
they're
the
just
same as the Scrubology. It's nylon tulle.
Okay, but
Just
no dryer,
nylon.
just wash it like in a laundry bag and then let them air dry.
I would put them through the dishwasher.
Ooh.
You can hook the center hole over one of the little spikes on the top.
That's what I do with mine.
I do that with mine also.
Yeah.
On the very top of the dishwasher. Awesome. Awesome.
Okay, well,
Oh, Good ideas, you guys. Look, we got everybody's minds going tonight. So I just wanted to show you that quick.
Do we have a little tag that can explain that you can wash them in the dishwasher that includes with the Scrubby?
I haven't made one up.
Well, let's do that.
I mean,
think
I've
that's
always done that with my sponges and stuff. Is that not?
I don't use sponges, so I wouldn't know.
No, I mean, like
I don't-
everything for the. I do that with my dishcloths. I do that with everything. I
don't want to admit this, but I've never had a dishwasher.
Oh.
Well, that's
It's right
okay,
here.
Yeah.
Kathy, when
Here's
I
the
was growing up,
dishwashers right
All right.
here.
I'm gonna turn the recording off, and then we can chit chat a little bit. So, Kathy, do you have a wrap up?
I'm just thank you for all the presenters tonight. You guys are fabulous. I appreciate you sharing your talents and all the time it took to make these super presentations for us. And I want to thank all of you craftivists in Crafting Change for everything that you do. You are so unselfish with your time and your efforts and your donations. You really are wonderful and changing lives for a lot of people. So I'm very, very proud to be associated and knowing all of you. So thank you all very much. If you have any questions, just contact me. Thank you.